Doctor Strange. Perhaps you could say this is the strangest entry in the MCU. Benedict Cumberbatch of Sherlock fame takes a turn at the Marvel stuff, totally becoming Doctor Strange with an incredibly convincing American accent. I mean, I'm not from America or anything, but considering I'm used to him speaking it with an English accent, it's pretty convincing to say the least. I wasn't necessarily a fan of the much-loved Cumberbatch role in the Imitation Game, as I did feel that he was really trying to get an Oscar from it, but he comes across as much more naturalistic here, not trying to strongly emphasise each word and emote as much of a variety of emotions into one sentence. I apologise if you liked his portrayal, much like the Academy did, but hey, that's just my opinion. He still plays the arrogant, self-centred, you know it all, as per usual, but you know, if you're good at something. Pretty much everyone else in the film seems to be giving it a good job too, such as Tilda Swinton and Mads Mikkelsen, both of who take their pretty generic roles and pretty much push as much as they can out of them. Tilda Swinton, for example, has a fantastic scene with Cumberbatch in the end of the film, in what I thought was the most beautiful and thought-provoking part of the film. No spoilers, of course, but you'll probably know which scene I mean if you've seen it. Although I do have to say that I thought pretty much every character other than Strange, his female friend, and Tilda Swinton, to some extent, were just fairly bland and actually kind of boring too. Nobody else, including Mikkelsen, unfortunately, was given enough character nor backstory, meaning most characters were pretty forgettable and flat to me. One thing Marvel and a lot of studios these days in fact try to do, and I emphasise on try, is include humour into as many scenes and characters as possible to probably appeal to a much wider audience, and maybe make it more family friendly, I suppose, but it just doesn't work. The most common joke I've noticed is the awkward silence. For example, when a character says something and another character just kind of stands there turning to them with a look of confusion on their face, as the edit cuts to a long shot to include the two or more characters, for humour, I guess. The problem is that they force this type of humour into scenes and characters that would never naturally do this sort of thing. I don't know, it's just something I've noticed pop up more and more in films like Marvel, The Force Awakens, X-Men, and even the DC films. It's just cringy more often than not. Anyway, as a film, the filmmakers definitely got a great opportunity with this film to get creative with what they do. Buildings collapsing on themselves, people fall from the sky, walk along the side of buildings, and even produce weapons from nowhere. All in the name of a new addition to the MCU, magic. And I've got to admit, it's a fun inclusion, as it really does allow the filmmakers to get creative with how a scene can play out. For example, the majority of fighting scenes end up with the characters battling out in ever-changing gravity and along visually pleasing corridors that disappear and crumble as they move. It's great fun. However, I do feel that the magic in this sense was used pretty solely on fight scenes alone, and not much else. That's not to say it's a negative thing, I'd just like to see more in the future. Oh, and I did love seeing it, as it was more of what I was expecting from 2010's Inception before I saw that, so that made me happy for sure. Pacing wise, I honestly felt that it dragged. I'm not completely sure as to why, but it was a far more dialogue driven film than usual, at least I thought it was. And I may have been expecting a shorter, tighter film or something, going off the likes of the last two Marvel standalone films, Ant-Man and Guardians of the Galaxy, both of which were just great fun from start to finish. So that may have been a self-made problem, but it definitely was a more drama-based film, especially in the beginning. And that's never a bad thing, it just may not have been what I was expecting. I've heard a lot of people refer to the film as a strong action film, but I thought there was a lack of action. Cinematography wise, I felt that the film was pretty poorly shot in some areas too. Some of the shots were off to me and lacked appropriate lighting. It didn't come across as having the dark, magical look that I would have expected it to have. Like, some of it felt more like a TV drama for some reason. The score as well, from what I remember, was pretty interesting actually. I'm liking the Doctor Strange theme so far. When the credits rolled, for example, I just sat there listening to the theme music because it was just more down the magical and mysterious route I was expecting, so that was good. Anyway, I haven't got too much to say on Doctor Strange overall. It was a decent entry to the MCU in my opinion. I'm not quite understanding where the high praise is coming from. I mean, just look at Rotten Tomatoes, 98% at the moment. But like I said, maybe it's just me, and maybe I do need to see it again. But it is odd, as I wasn't really expecting anything in particular from the film, and I was still disappointed. I do wish Marvel would work on the strengthening of villains in cases like this though, as I would have liked to have seen a more developed villain for Mikkelsen to play, for example. I did like the film, but I'd probably have to say that my overall opinion of the film is that it was alright. My final rating of the film is 6.8 out of 10. I'd probably have to put this down towards the middle section of my favourite MCU films so far. There are 14 now, if you didn't know. 14. Wow. And that's not even counting the endless amount of TV shows the MCU has to include. So yeah, sorry if my opinion hurt your feelings or anything, but why not check out some of my other reviews? I don't have that many, but even so, I do have a whole lot of other film-related stuff on the channel. So yeah. Bye. Probably say that this review is a not so praiseworthy review. Yes, see what I mean.